Got the hair down because it is sleepy time for me, but I have one thing to talk about. Obsession.
Oh, no, don't do that! I thought we were having a nice date!
I don't know if it's because I don't watch that many scary movies, but this was literally the scariest movie I've ever watched. And I watched this movie around 11 and I got out around 2 a.m. So you can imagine the vibe. It's creepy. Anyways, I'm gonna give you a quick summary on Obsession. First introduced to a character named Bear, a little introvert that just wants to find some love. He has a friend group consisting of Nikki, Sarah, and Ian. Bear is having trouble confessing his love to Nikki. The points where it's like, it's kind of awkward. He makes a lot of awkward moments, tries to make very certain investments. Ian is kind of provoking it, but not. He tells Bear to wait. Bear does not want to wait, so he sets up very awkward scenarios. And Ian likes to invade in the situation, which is foreshadowing for something else we learn in the movie. In the process of going to meet up with Nikki at a party, he stumbles a thing called One Wish Willow. The whole premise of One Wish Willow is that you make a wish and you snap it and your wish comes true. Well, he buys it for Nikki. And after the bar, he takes Nikki home and they have their little talk, their awkward talk. Nikki goes inside. Bear wishes for Nikki to love him more than anybody else in the world. Well, saying this, he didn't think it was real. Nikki spawns in on the front porch and walks into frame. So this is where stuff starts to get a little cuckoo. Bear ends up inviting Nikki into his house. They end up sleeping, or she ends up sleeping over, and she acts a little freaky, snapping in and out of reality now and then, freaking Bear out. So the next day, Bear goes to Ian and talks about this whole night, how crazy she was acting. Ian says that she's on Molly, and yeah, while this is happening, Nikki's watching the whole conversation. So Nikki and Bear end up forming a relationship. This weirds out the friend group, Sarah and Ian, and boom, it cuts to a montage of their relationship. It's all completely normal. They fall in love together, and then stuff starts to get freaky, like feeding him cat meat. She ends up murdering the entire friend group, and at the end of the movie she ends up snapping back into reality and is confronted with all the corpses. So right off the bat, we can tell this film gives off demonic vibes. So throughout this film, you can tell Nikki is not in control of her own body. After Bear makes that wish, something replaces her and keeps her locked in a cage, kind of like taking away her soul and replacing it with a demon. The love that Bear thought was there was in fact not real. This in return entirely ruined Nikki's life. To the point where at the end, you saw, again, she's confronted with 3 corpses, and we're left to kind of think of what's going to happen to her. Is she going to off herself, or is she going to be arrested for 3 murders? At the end of this film, it does make you feel bad for Nikki, or throughout the film makes you feel bad for Nikki. Speaking of that, I think this movie does a great job on flip-flopping the roles. So in the beginning, we feel the need to have pity or feel sad for Bear because he's having issues with his romance life. And he's having like personal issues like his cat dying and obviously living alone. But then as the movie goes on, it slowly shifts to Nikki's, and now you feel bad for Nikki because now Nikki's the victim. So now it's almost like the protagonist becomes the antagonist. Sad to see that Nikki didn't ask for this. It kind of happened because Bear made that wish, and that wish destroyed her entire life. And secretly, I think Nikki actually loved Bear, but Bear wouldn't have the balls to confront his love to her. So one of the things that this movie does a great job of is the soundtrack and the sound effects. Although this movie uses a lot of practical effects and there's not many visuals when it comes to jump scares, the sound does a lot. You know, the sound does a great job at carrying the entire movie. And it's not saying that they needed more practical effects. I think what they had was perfect. I'm just saying that like there is jump scares and it's very audio based. Visuals, I'm gonna say, is a 10 out of 10. There's a specific example where Nikki was standing in the shadows. I think it was outside of Bear's door, and there was like a glare in her eyes, and I've never seen this type of like visual before, and it covers, like, the shadow covers her face, but it also outlines it, so you could still see her emotions. That was well done, absolutely well done. Gave off the creepy vibe, even though she was like in the dark. Acting, amazing too. The actor for Nikki did a great job on this role. I know this role is probably tough to do, and I probably affected her mentally somehow, because the amount of immersion you have to actually be in to play this type of role is crazy. So yeah, props to her. A highlight of practical effects would be Sarah getting served mashed potatoes. Scene though, there is a frame though that kind of looks fake. You can tell it's like a doll, but whenever the body rests, it looks very disturbing and it looks very real. So great job, Blumhouse. That's what I expected. Hopefully people are talking about the amount of force you have to serve a person mashed potatoes into a brick, especially at Nikki's size. Like, that's pretty crazy. One criticism I'll give is the horror element creeped up way too fast. I think it hit around the 5-minute mark where it started to get really creepy. I think we should have a little more room for story, especially for Bear and Nikki, because those are the two main characters. I think it brought it in too fast and kind of threw us off, and just threw us right in the deep end. But it does kind of make up for it during the prelude in the relationship montage. I think mixing in, a modern day problem into a movie is very creepy and little too relatable for the human race. As we speak, the movie has made $171.3 million straight out of the box office. Its budget was $175,000, making this the biggest movie release ever. So let's get into theories. My theory, even though it doesn't say it in this movie, it doesn't really specify anything, and I think it's for good reason. This movie is definitely a metaphor for making deals with the devil. There was a scene where Bear called, and there was this guy on a phone, and he was very mellow and very toned down. And I think they put him in the movie for a reason, this entire scene, to really specify what's going on here. Bear asked to cancel the wish, and the guy refuses, and then reveals that Nikki's in the phone, but not physically in the phone, but like almost like her soul is kept from her real body. There's just too many possession demon elements in this movie to ignore. I think the guy on the phone was either Satan or a demon.
There's a way I can cancel a wish.
I'm sorry, we don't really do that.
Humans are really the scariest creatures in this earth. Not because of how they look like, but what they can do. So every action in this movie is feasible. There's been problems where people have acted this way before. And I think human beings create their own downfall, and Bear created his own downfall. This is what he gets for being a gullible little shit. For the question of the video, is obsession mid? Absolutely not. I think this movie in Backrooms is going to change the movie industry entirely. I think it's going to rock freaking Hollywood's world. I think it's time. This is a clear sign to now start letting the younger audience direct. The new generation come in and create amazing movies, because that's what's working. I think people are getting tired of the same actors and the same directors in all these movies that they're spending billions of dollars to make that are flopping fast. But yeah, I think people want new actors in movies and new directors. I think that's what will change the movie industry entirely. I think that's what will spike up the market. But that's all I have this video. That's all my thoughts and opinions of Obsession. If you liked, like, subscribe, leave a comment down below if you want more like this. I'm done.